Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Dose. And Xbox just revealed their future plans, which includes some good, it includes some interesting, and maybe even some bad, depending on how you look at it. Though for that last part, I'm going to get into what I think they could be doing for their fan base to get them to buy into their next generation console. So we're going to get into all of that today, as well as Nintendo's wrath on the emulation community. Yeah, they are not quite finished just yet. Let's just go and get right into things, though, starting off with the absolutely stunning Dragon Quest HD 2D. It's set to release tomorrow on November 14th, and I do understand that there is some controversy with some of the decisions that Square Enix made. Unfortunately, there is some censoring, but other than that, it seems like it's a really good game. Reviews started to roll out today, and lo and behold, it currently has an 85 overall score on Metacritic with a total of 32 reviews. So, I mean, this is actually one of the better rated JRPGs that you can play on current hardware. According to what I've read online, though, it's extremely faithful to the original experience, but maybe to a fault. There might not be as many quality of life improvements as you would like to see for a remake, but just like the classic, it's still a great game. The HD 2D visuals are absolutely stunning, maybe among the best that we've ever seen. And one thing that I really love about the HD 2D trend is the inclusion of voice acting. I think it just makes such a huge difference for these classics, and I'm hearing good things about the voice acting for Dragon Quest. So if anything else here, this seemingly is yet another classic that's proven itself in the modern era of games. These games are timeless for a reason. Now, we also got an update for Astrobot. There's been a lot of conversation about its sales numbers these past few months. A lot of us look at this game as a potential opportunity to prove to Sony once and for all that we do want these smaller scale games as well. We don't want them to just invest into AAA and live service games and nothing else. There is room for these AA style of games. So there is this idea that Astrobot is one of the most important releases of 2024. And that's why I'm happy to say that Astrobot got off to a pretty good start. Sony confirmed that it was indeed a hit for them and that it sold 1.5 million copies within its first 2 months. Now, that might not necessarily be as much as some of Sony's other big hitters, but you also have to kind of remember that expectations are vastly, vastly different for those games. If you look at something like Spider-Man 2, its budget was around $300 million, which is just absolutely insane. But Astrobot cost just a fraction of that because they're made up of only 60 developers, and they created this game in just 3 years. So the fact that Sony already confirmed that it was indeed a hit for them, I think that pretty much tells you everything that you need to know. More so here is that they also confirmed that 37% of its buyers were new users who hadn't purchased a PlayStation first-party game in over 2 years. So Astrobot seems to be bringing people back to their ecosystem once again, which is also great for their future. Now, something else that we know is that Astrobot is tracking similar to Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, and it's also had a bigger launch than both Crash Bandicoot 4 and Sonic Frontiers in Europe. And that's something that you need to keep in mind when you talk about 3D platformers. It's all about expectations. These type of games tend to be slow burners that sells well over a period of time. 1.5 million is absolutely a great start, and right now it seems to be tracking towards 3+ million as long as it has good legs, similar to the other 3D platformers that I just mentioned. So kudos to Sony and Asobi here. Hopefully this is only the beginning of more games like this in the future. Now, something that we talked about yesterday was PlayStation's Black Friday. They seemingly leaked their discount just a little bit early. If you missed that video, make sure to go check it out. But now, we also have information for what Nintendo plans to do. Par of the course, once again, they didn't really go overboard for Black Friday. I guess the Switch sells insane numbers during the holiday regardless of what they do. But if you're looking for some discounted games, they announced that starting November 24th through the 30th, you'll be able to pick up Zelda Tears of the Kingdom for $50. That's a $20 discount. And then Mario Maker 2, Animal Crossing New Horizons, Pikmin 4, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and the physical version of Switch Sports will be $40. Again, that is a $20 discount. And then lastly, Mario Odyssey and Pikmin 1+2 will be $30 each. Now, I definitely recommend Pikmin 1+2. Those are absolutely amazing games. There's a lot of content there for just $30. and I also think that its price tag might hold up very well over time. Now, as for their consoles, though, they'll offer a Switch Mario Kart 8 bundle for $300. There's also going to be an OLED Mario Kart 8 bundle for $350. And then lastly, a Hyrule Edition Switch Lite, which includes a 12-month Switch Online Plus expansion pack membership for a total of $210. So, I mean, like I said, this is par of the course for Nintendo during the Switch generation. I don't think this is necessarily a very impressive Black Friday lineup, but, you know, it's better than nothing. I mean, you would think they'd be a little bit more willing to do some steep discounts considering it's a 7-year-old console, going on 8 in just a few months, but I suppose not. Maybe next year when the Switch successor is their primary focus. Okay, so let's go and talk about Xbox and what they have planned for the future. Phil Spencer dropped some pretty major news today, which includes a brand new direction for their console business. Now, there's 2 parts of this story, though, so bear with me for a moment. The first of which, in my opinion, is the more exciting of the 2, and that's because he officially confirmed the long-rumored Xbox handheld console. Yes, this has been a dream console for Xbox fans pretty much since the 360 days, and after all of these years, they are finally working on a prototype. It's 100% confirmed now. There's no more rumors. This is actually happening. But he also clarified that's not going to happen next year. According to him, it's still a few years off. But personally, I kind of view that as a good thing. The last time that we had heard about this Xbox handheld, there was a rumor that it would release next year, which, you know, that would have been exciting to some extent. But my thing about an Xbox handheld is that considering first-party Xbox games tends to be a little bit more graphically demanding, I almost feel like it would be best for them to wait a few years and launch it when they have better technology available to them. Now, that's just my opinion. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong here, but assuming that it can run Xbox games natively, crossing my fingers for that, but it'll likely need to have some pretty good specs, and preferably better than what we have with the Steam Deck and something like the ROG Ally as 2 such examples. Either which way, though, I mean, I think this is incredibly exciting news. I 100% believe that we're entering the golden age of handheld devices, and by 2030, there's a very good chance that we could have a great option for Nintendo, for Xbox, PlayStation, and PC, which is just crazy to think about. The days of handheld hardware holding back games graphically quickly is becoming a thing of the past. But yeah, I mean, PlayStation and Xbox could both enter the fray with their own handheld companions to their already established home console market in the soonest future. That's the other part of the story, though, because there are some questions about Microsoft's commitment to their home console business. As we've seen pretty much since the Activision Blizzard acquisition, Microsoft has taken this more multi-platform, but not completely multi-platform approach. They've released a few different Xbox IP on rival consoles, which includes Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment, Grounded, Sea of Thieves, and even the upcoming Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. That is a timed Xbox exclusive. However, this doesn't include any of the big staple Xbox franchises, you know, your Halos, your Forzas, and the Gears of War games. So there's been a lot of speculation and there's been a lot of rumors that certain Xbox IP are just simply off limits, and they absolutely will not even be considered for rival consoles. Well, on the contrary, Phil Spencer says otherwise. Instead, he left the door open. In his interview with Bloomberg, he told them, "I do not see sort of red lines in our portfolio that say, thou must not. It's too early to make any sort of decision on the next version of Halo." Now, I like Phil Spencer. I think he seems like a really good guy. But I feel like these type of statements are not great in terms of business. I mean, to me, if they've not made a decision like he claims, then putting this type of information in the wild, it doesn't really seem like a smart idea, or at least in my opinion. You know, maybe just don't do an interview until you have a strategy in place. This is why Microsoft has this tendency of having a messaging problem. It does, there's always a lot of different things that they say, and it tends to confuse their fans. And, as an example, they have in the past mentioned multiple times, in fact, that they are working on a next-generation console. But when he puts statements out like this, that doesn't really seem like a big selling point for their consumers. It's just not what they want to hear to get them to buy their next console, nor has it ever been a good selling point for consoles to not have exclusives. Now, that's not to say that they won't have exclusives in the future, but when you put messages out like this for millions of people to read, surely there's going to be confusion that comes along with that. However, I will say this much. If they do continue in this multi-platform, but not necessarily completely multi-platform approach, I think there's one thing that they could do to maybe attract a very specific audience for their next console. And when I think about it, they might have actually teased this in the past. And that's by making the most powerful console that we've ever seen. And I'm talking about by far. Something that will be far more powerful than what Sony does with the PlayStation 6. I mean, Xbox did say in the past that, quote-unquote, that their next console will be the largest technical leap in a hardware generation that we've ever seen. So that almost makes me wonder if they're going to attempt to do an ultra-premium console that's much more powerful than what the competition will be capable of. I mean, it could be a $1,000 console for all we know, but, I mean, there could be a specific market for something like that. Maybe not necessarily the majority, but for anybody who wants the best multi-platform games with just the best performance and visuals, they might be willing to buy into an ultra-premium console that also offers some exclusives and Xbox Game Pass. So maybe that's their plan? I mean, I'm just simply speculating here, but maybe. They could do an ultra-expensive premium console like we've never seen before, and then also a handheld device if you prefer to play your games on the go. Let me know what you all think about all this, though. What do you think about Phil Spencer's comments? And also, would you be interested in an ultra-premium home console, albeit probably very pricey? Okay, now, one last thing before we go. Last month, the Nintendo Switch emulator Ryujinx randomly shut down. This is less than a year after Yuzu also got shut down. And at the time, there was a lot of speculation that Nintendo was involved with the closure of Ryujinx as well. There were reports from people who are close to the situation, and they said that Nintendo was in discussion with the Ryujinx creator. And that has now seemingly been confirmed. It was recently spotted on Whois.com that Nintendo of America is now the registrant for Ryujinx.org. So, in other words, Nintendo now owns Ryujinx. Now, we don't know the exact details as to how they got the ownership. They might have threatened the owner with a lawsuit. That wouldn't surprise me. Or they could have gave them the option to just sell it and walk away peacefully. It's hard to say exactly how this played out, but I know a lot of people are going to be mad at Nintendo for doing something like this. But honestly, I'm not in that boat. What I'll kind of say here is that I am a big supporter of emulation, especially when it comes to retro platforms. And there's a lot of times when I don't like what Nintendo does. I think they're far too litigious for their own good. I think the Power World lawsuit, as one such example, is just absolutely ridiculous. But in this case, the Switch is an active console, and they've already confirmed that the Switch successor will be backwards compatible. So they have absolutely every right to protect the software that they're still trying to sell. I mean, just earlier this year, they revealed that Zelda Tears of the Kingdom was pirated more than 1 million times before it even officially released. I mean, to me, it's one thing if you own a copy of said game, and then you emulate it for better performance. I think that's perfectly fine. But the reality is, and I think we all kind of know this, that there's a lot of people that aren't doing that. So because of that, I can't really blame Nintendo for protecting their current consoles and current software. If you disagree, though, let me hear in the comments below. I'm always ears for differing opinions, so absolutely let me hear your thought process as well. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode, but until next time, subscribe and peace out.